Okay, I gotta get to work on this story here. I'm not gonna worry about pushing out that story till you just go do something else. We're going into the early life of Richard Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor. This is his. It's all about him, man. Pryor was born on December the 1st, 1940, in Peoria, Illinois, and grew up in a brothel run by his grandmother, Marie Carter, his alcoholic mother. His alcoholic mother, Gertrude L. Thomas, was a prostitute. His father, Pryor, Leroy Pryor, they call him Buck Carter. He was a former boxer, hustler, and pimp. Gertrude abandoned him when he was 10 years old. Man, Pryor was raised primarily by Marie, who was his grandmother, a tall, violent woman who would beat him for any of his eccentricities. Pryor was one of the four children raised in his grandmother's brothel. He was sexually abused at the age of 7 and expelled from school at the age, yeah, he was expelled from school at the age of 14, all through his teen years. There's always got to be something about him, man. When you take it to what happened from the 1950s to the 1960s, you know what I mean? Yeah, Pryor has served in the United States Army from the 1950s to the 1960s. That's from 1958 to 1960. But he spent virtually the entire stint in an army prison, according to a 1999 profile article about Pryor in the New Yorker. Pryor was incarcerated for an incident that occurred while he was stationed in West Germany, angered that a white soldier was overly amused at the racially charged scenes of Douglas Sirk's film Imitation of Life. Pryor and several other black soldiers, they beat him and stabbed him. They beat him and they stabbed him. Although the soldiers survived, he was a member of Henry Brown Lodge number 22 in Peoria, where he became a Prince Hall Freemason. We'll jump into his career in the 1960s. In 1963, man, let me tell you about what happened in 1963, folks. Richard Pryor moved to New York City and began performing regularly in clubs alongside performers such as Bob Dylan and Woody Allen. One of his first nights that he opened for singer and pianist Nina Simone at the Village Gate in New York. Simone recalls Pryor's bout of performance anxiety, which that she mentioned. He shook like he had malaria. He was so nervous I couldn't bear to watch him shiver. So I put my arms around there in the dark and rocked him like a baby until he calmed down. The next night was the same, and the next I rocked him each time. Initially inspired by Bill Cosby, Pryor began as a middle-brow comic, with the material less controversial than what was to come. He began appearing regularly on television variety shows such as The Ed Sullivan Show, The Merv Griffin Show. Yes, The Merv Griffin Show and The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. These are some old ass talk shows, boy. His popularity led to success as a comic in Las Vegas. The first five tracks on the 2005 compilation CD is called Evolution Revolution. The early years, 1966, 1974, recorded in 1966 and 1967, captured Pryor and hit in this period. But in 1966, Pryor was a guest star on an episode of The Wild Wild West. In September 1967, Pryor had what he described in his autobiography, Pryor Convictions, as an epiphany. He walked onto the stage. He walked onto the stage at the Atlantic Hotel in Las Vegas, with Dean Martin, in the audience. Look at the sold out crowd exclaimed over the microphone. He was like, "What the fuck am I doing here?" And walked off the stage. Afterward, Pryor began working profanity in his act, including the word nigger. This first comedy recording that he used, that's what he did. The 1968, the 1968 debut, Richard Pryor, it's the album. This is his album. See, this is a photo of him, butt ass naked. But that already happened there, so it's saying that the album Richard Pryor was debuted by him. See, the album Richard Pryor, it was debuted by Pryor himself. It was recorded live in 1968 in it was at the Troubadour. That was in oh, I said WeHo. It was West Hollywood. It was West Hollywood, California. Some people call it WeHo. But the 1968 debut album, it was called Richard Pryor. It was on the Dub Reprise label, captures this particular period, tracking the evolution of Pryor's routine. His parents died. His mother, who was alcoholic, passed away in 1967. His father, uh, a boxer, his father who had to be a boxer, you know what I'm saying, hustler and a pimp. You know, he died right after his mother died. It's 1968. But by the same year, after his father had passed away, Pryor had broken with Bill Cosby's style of comedy and became more controversial, to say the least. See, in 1969, yeah, back in the days, In 1969, Pryor, yes, I had to go find a way to say his name right. Pryor moved to Berkeley, California, where he immersed himself in the counterculture and met the people like Huey P. Newton. I messed up with the name Hilly. It's Huey. Huey. P is in Percy. N is in Newton. He immersed himself. Yeah, he moved to Berkeley and where he just immersed himself in the counterculture and he met people like Huey P. Newton and Ishmael Reed. So the 1970s, that's where it's heading to. But in the 1970s, Pryor wrote for the television shows such as the 1972 Sanford and Son television show, and you have the Flip Wilson show that came out before Sanford and Son. Lily Tomlin special that was from 1973, for which he starred at an Emmy Award during this period that Pryor tried to break into the mainstream television world. He appeared in several films that was around, including Lady Sings the Blues, The Mac, Uptown Saturday Night, Silver Streak, Car Wash, The Bingo Long Traveling All Stars, and Motor Kings. Which Way is Up, Greased Lightning, Blue Collar, and The Muppet Movie. This was screws with my shit here. Fucks up my way of reading. Pryor signed with the comedy-oriented independent record label Laugh Records in 1970, right? And in 1971, he recorded his second album. It was called Craps, that pulls out like after hours. 2 years later, Pryor, he's still relatively unknown. He appeared in a documentary called Watt Stacks. It's called White Stacks. Wherein he ripped on the tragic comedy absurdities. Yes, the tragic comic absurdities of race relations in Watts. That was like in the Los Angeles neighborhood in the United States. Well, some people call it the States. Not long afterward, Pryor sought a deal with a larger label, and he signed with a record label called Stax Records in 1973 when his third breakout album, That Nigga's Crazy. Yeah, that's what it says. That's what's the keywords. That Nigga's Crazy. Yeah, that album was released. Laugh, which claimed that ownership of Pryor's recording nights, almost succeeded in getting an injunction to prevent the album from being sold. Yep, there's a catch to it. Negotiations negotiations led to. I will tell you about negotiations. They led to Pryor's release from his Laugh Records contract. In return for this concession, Laugh was enabled to release a previously unissued material recorded between 1968 and 1973 at will. The album called That Nigga's Crazy was a commercial and critical success. It was eventually certified gold by the what it says the RIAA. It stands for the Recording Industry Association of America. It can become a trade organization representing the United States recording industry. And and won the Grammy Award, the Grammy Award for the Best Comedy Album at the 1975 Grammy Awards. Let's get to this legal battle here. During the legal battle, as I mentioned here, Stax briefly closed its doors for good. At this time, Pryor returned to the label that he was known to do business with, Reprise Warner Brothers Records, which have re-released that same album that Laugh Records was about to block, successfully tried to block. It's called That Nigga's Crazy. Immediately after It Is Something I Said, his first album with his new label, but like that nigga's crazy album, the like the that nigga's crazy album was a critical success. It was eventually certified platinum by the RIAA and won the Grammy Award for the Best Comedy Recording at the 1976 Grammy Awards. Let me get you back to his 1976 release. It's called Bicentennial Nigga. Continued his streak of success. It became his third consecutive gold album, and he collected his third consecutive Grammy for the best comedy recording for the album in 1977. With every successful album to date back then, excuse me, man. Too busy Jones with this blunt here. With every successful album to date, Pryor recorded for Warner or later his concert films in his 1980 freebasing accident. Laugh Records published an album of the older material to capitalize on Pryor's growing fame. The growing fame that Pryor could have had. A practice they continued until 1983. The covers of Laugh albums tied to the thematically with the films that Richard Pryor was already in, such as Are You Serious? For Silver Streak, The Wizard of Comedy for his appearance in The Wiz, and Insane for Stir Crazy. Pryor had co-wrote Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles. This is the type of movie that Mr. Dietrich Davis was telling us about. In prior to my live show, based on him mentioning what Richard Pryor can get away with using the N word in a movie. Yeah, Davis was like a Richard Pryor fan. Davis is like a Richard Pryor fan growing up. You know, remembering Richard Pryor, man. Pryor had co-wrote Blazing Saddles. It was like an old Western film that's been out in the '70s, but it was directed. It was a film that was directed by the likes of Mel Brooks and starring Gene Wilder. Pryor Pryor was to play Pryor. Let me tell you about. Let's see. To tell you about Richard Pryor. Let me see here. Richard Pryor was about to play the lead role of the Bart character, but Mel Brooks, who's directed the film, didn't want to share the credit with the quickly rising comic. Brooks Brooks himself has always maintained uh, the executives at Warner Brothers that vetoed Pryor's casting, but no studio executive has ever corroborated this claim. It was only after Pryor's death in 2005 that Brooks began insisting the comic was uninsurable because of a drug arrest. Because of a drug arrest. But to date, no studio executive employed at Warner Brothers Films during this era has ever gone on the record to corroborate these assertions. Either the directors vigorously advocating or the studio's absolute rejection for hiring Pryor to act in Blazing Saddles, according to director Michael Schultz. Michael Schultz, he said that Richard wrote it and Mel Brooks, yeah, Richard wrote it and Mel Brooks chased him out. Schultz said this at the time during the film's theatrical exhibition. Mel Brooks Mel Brooks was trying to get total credit for the picture, to be outmaneuvered and ripped off at that early stage. That early stage in his career is something that's a little hard for him to get over. I feel the same way. Moreover, Brooks assured Pryor that the role of Sheriff Bart was his own. But after Pryor departed the director's writer's suite, he never heard from Mel Brooks ever again. He never even heard from Brooks again. In early 1972, Pryor was like reportedly dumbfounded, like those white people were, when he had to first learn from an actor who goes by the name of Cleavon Little that Brooks wasn't going to use him. Yeah, that's what it says. Even though Pryor was dumbfounded reportedly when he first had to learn from the likes of American stage film and TV actor Cleavon Jake Little, that Mel Brooks wasn't going to use him on screen. In 1975, Pryor was a guest host on the first season of SNL, Saturday Night Live, making him the first black host. Yeah, Pryor's longtime girlfriend that he had already known a little bit, and who had to be Lynette McKee's sister, Catherine McKee. Yeah, Catherine McKee, who was Lynette McKee's sister. He was working with her for some reason. Why would you asking you now you wanted to know that he was the guest host on the first season of SNL, making him the first black host. And he wanted me to do this again with Lynette McKee's sister, who was a longtime girlfriend of Richard Pryor's, who was an actress and a talk show host, who had to be Catherine McKee. She have already made a brief guest appearance with Pryor on the Saturday Night Live show here. On one of the highlights of the night was the controversial word association skit that was with Chevy Chase. He later did his own variety show that was already named after Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor he did his own variety show that was named after him. It was called the Richard Pryor Show, which had premiered on the National Broadcasting Company in 1977. That's NBC. That's NBC. And people, them viewers go catch me hotboxing in here. Yeah, he did his own variety show, the Richard Pryor Show. He did later. The show was canceled after the 4 episodes that NBC was about to air, probably because the television audiences did not respond well to his show's controversial subject matter. And Pryor was unwilling. Let me tell you about Richard Pryor. He was unwilling to alter his material for the network censors. He later said that they offered me 10 episodes, but they said that I all wanted. Yes, what's what happens. He mentioned this. Pryor mentioned all this. Like he said that they offered me 10 episodes, but I said I wanted 2 and 4. During the short-lived series that he portrayed the first black president of the United States, spoofed the Star Wars Mos Eisley Cantina examined gun violence. In a non-comedy skit, lampooned racism on the sinking Titanic and used the costumes and visual distortion to appear nude. That means naked, like butt naked. In 1979, at the height of his success, Pryor visited Kenya. Upon returning to the United States from Africa, Pryor Pryor had already swore like this with raised his hand that he would never use the word nigger in his stand-up comedy routine again. It's the 1980s. This is his established career. In 1980, Pryor had became get this dogs to stop barking. In 1980, Pryor became the first black actor to earn $1 million for a single film that when he was hired to star in Stir Crazy. On June 9th, 1980, that he while he was on this freebasing binge during the making of the film, Richard Pryor, his crazy ass had to doused himself in some rum that he was about to drink, and he set himself on fire. He almost died. Pryor had incorporated a description of the incident into his comedy show, the comedy special that I was getting ready to watch. Right after I'm done watching Wow, Richard Pryor, live on the Sunset Strip. That could be his 17th album that was already made by him. And Pryor started joking that the event was caused by dunking a cookie into a glass of low fat and pasteurized milk, causing an explosion at the end of the bit. Oh, Richard, you sly bastard. You sly bastard. He poked fun at the people who told the jokes. Yeah, let me rephrase. He poked the fun at people who had told jokes about it by waving a lit match and saying, "What's that? Richard Pryor running down the street." Before the freebasing incident slash problem, Pryor was about to start filming uh, a movie that was already been directed by Mel Brooks. He's about to go start filming a Mel Brooks History of the World Part 1. But he was replaced at the last minute by an actor who goes by the name of Gregory Oliver Hines. Likewise, Pryor was scheduled for an appearance on the Muppet Show at that time, which forced the producers to cast their British writer, who goes by the name of Christopher Langham. Well, he's English already. Why mistaking him for he's just an English writer, not a British writer. Yeah, I repeat it well, which forced the producers to cast their British slash English writer Christopher Christopher Langham as the guest star for that episode instead. After his final performance, Pryor did not stay away from stand-up comedy for long. No, he couldn't. Within a year, he filmed and released a few, not few. He released a new concert film that he was ready to do, and he started accompanying an album. It was called Richard Pryor Here and Now. It was an American stand-up comedy concert, which he directed himself, and he wrote and directed a fictionalized account of his life, Jojo Dancer, Your Life is Calling, which was inspired by the 1980 freebasing incident. The movie was already been out in prior to him, uh, you know, being interviewed about the movie. Paul Mooney already did the screenplay. You gotta give credit to Paul Mooney and Rocco Urbisi. Urbisci, Rocco Urbici, Rocco Urbici. Him and Paul Mooney, rest in peace. They did the screenplay for that movie. We'll go to 1983 here. 1983, Pryor signed a 5-year contract with Columbia Pictures here. It's Columbia Pictures Industries Incorporated, which was doing business as Columbia Pictures and used to be known previously known as Columbia Pictures Corporation. Uh, for $40 million, $40 million, and he started his own production company. Was called Indigo Productions. Softer, more formulaic films followed, including including the movie. Yeah, it's called Superman 3. We got a couple with Pryor being saved by Christopher Reeve here. There's Pryor being rescued by Reeve. There he is right here. Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent slash Superman saving Richard Pryor, who played the character in this movie, alongside Annette Toole. It was with Annette O'Toole and a few other people, which earned Pryor like $4 million. The Brewster's Millions movie he was already been featured in with the late John Candy, rest in peace. Lynette McKee, who was the sister of Catherine McKee, uh, who Richard Pryor was working with in the movie. Stephen Collins is already been featured in it. This is long before uh this is long before Seven Heaven in the 2000s, which the Warner Brothers Network slash the CW network used to air. And Hume Cronin, Moving. Let me take you to Moving. It's a movie that he was starred in alongside Beverly Todd, Stacey Dash, King Kong Bundy. I think it was Dave Thomas was already in there. Uh, I feel there was some people that he was working with. It was Beverly Todd he was working with. Uh, Dave Thomas was in there. Dana Carvey. Who else was there? King Kong Bundy, rest in peace. Morris Day, who was part of this R&B singing group called The Time, and Stacey Dash. This is long before Clueless. It's long before Clueless, where she was working with Alicia Silverstone and Brittany Murphy and 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 that guy who played as the father of that teenager who used to go to school with her friends. In this movie here, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, the only film project from this period that recalled his rough roots was Pryor's semi-autobiographic. Yeah, it was where I came find way to I had to reverb a little. Yeah, it was Pryor's semi-autobiographic debut as a writer director. See, the movie JoJo Dancer, Your Life Is Calling, which was not a major success. It didn't even do its justice anyway. Pryor was also originally considered for the role of the Billy Ray Valentine character on The Trading Places before comedian and actor Edward Reagan Murphy won the part. Well, he was a singer. After he did some movies like Trading Places and Beverly Hills Cop. Despite the reputation that Richard Pryor had for constantly using profanity on and off camera, but he briefly hosted a children's show. But Pryor decided to put the profane language on hold before he had to go host a children's show that was on CBS. It was like a family friendly type of show, like Pryor's Place. Let me show you Pryor's Place right here. It was a family friendly, you know, children's TV series. You know what I'm saying? It was featured by all the people that was all the people that got featured on it. You know what I'm saying? It was like Sesame Street. That's where Pryor had appeared in a few oft repeated segments. Like Pryor's Place was featured a cast of puppets that was animated by the Crops, the Crops, Sid and Marty Croft. That's them. These brothers right here. These brothers right here. The Croft brothers, Sid and Marty. Yeah, their real names were Sidus and Moshapopulos Yolas. Yeah, these brothers are hanging out and having fun in a friendly inner city environment, along with the several children and characters portrayed by Pryor himself. Yeah, its theme song was so performed by a singer who did the theme song for Ghostbusters, Raymond Erskine Parker Jr. He happened to be American singer, guitarist, songwriter, record producer, and as a solo performer, he wrote and performed the theme song for the 1984 film. The film that was out in 1984, it was called Ghostbusters. It also did the sounds that was from an animated series that was based off of the movie. It was called The Real Ghostbusters. Pryor's Place frequently dealt with more sobering issues than Sesame Street. It was canceled shortly after its debut. There's another one here with Pryor after JoJo Dancer and a few other movies. Pryor had co-hosted the Academy Awards like not once but twice. the 49th Academy Awards in 1977. 1977 with the likes of these people here that been in films. Warren Beatty, whose real name was Henry Beatty, Ellen Burstyn, and Jane Fonda. And again at the 55th Academy Awards in 1983, alongside Liza Minnelli, Dudley Moore, and the late Walter Matthau, who did all the work, along with his friend in real life, who's now deceased, Jack Lemmon, in movies like The Odd Couple, um, Grumpy Old Men. It was in Grumpy Old Men. I've seen the movies. The two movies that already came out prior to the Dennis the Menace movie. You know what I'm saying? As Mr. Wilson, if I remember that character. But Pryor was also nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award for the Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series on the television series Chicago Hope. It was a David Kelly creation. Network censors had warned Pryor about using obscene and profane language, like profanity, for the Academy Awards. And after a slip early in the program, a 5-second delay was instituted. When returning from a commercial break, Pryor was, let me tell you about Richard Pryor. He is one of the only three, he was one of the only three people, like the Saturday Night Live hosts. He was one of those three hosts on Saturday Night Live to be subjected to a 5-second delay, along with the likes of Sam Kinison, who was no longer with us. He passed away. And another person who was still alive doing comedy. Oh yeah, Andrew Dice Clay. That's what Andrew Dice Clay would tell you. I'll do an Andrew Dice Clay impression that you go get sick of, that you don't even like to hear. But your Pryor needed the money. Oh, yeah. This is what Dice would say. The Richard Pryor, he needed the money. Oh, Pryor, man. Pryor had developed a reputation for being demanding and disrespectful on the film sets, and for making selfish and difficult requests. In his autobiography was called "Kiss Me Like a Stranger." A co-star who he already known and worked with, Gene Wilder, he says that Pryor was frequently late to the set during a filming of Stir Crazy. Yeah, he was late. Yes, he was late to the set frequently during the filming of their movie Stir Crazy, and that he just demanded, among other things, like a helicopter to fly him to and from the set, because he was the star that is featured in the movies in television. Pryor was so accused of using allegations of onset racism to force the hand of the film producers into giving him more money. One day, our lunch hour in the last week of filming, the craft service man handed out slices of watermelon to each of us. Richard, Richard, the whole camera crew, and I sat together. Yeah, that's what he says. Richard, the whole camera crew, and I sat together in a big sound studio eating a number of watermelon slices, talking and joking as a gag. I ain't eat no fruit yesterday. I already ate some salad and some shrimp and some noodles last night. I ain't eat no goddamn fruit. I ate some salad, vegetables, vegetable salad, and some noodles and some shrimps. Yeah, Richard. Yeah, he's saying that Richard. Yeah, that's what they mentioned about how Richard, the whole camera crew, and I sat together in a big sound studio eating a number of watermelon slices, talking and joking as a gag. Some of the members, some members of the crew used a piece of watermelon as a frisbee just for them to throw it and toss it back and forth to each other. And one piece of the watermelon landed at at Richard's feet. It landed at the behest of Richard's feet while Richard was standing there. He got up and went home. The filming stopped. The next day, Richard unannounced Richard had announced that he knew very well what the significance of watermelon was. He said that he was quitting show business and would not return to this film. The day after that, Richard walked in, all smiles. I wasn't privy I wasn't privy to all the negotiations that went on between Columbia and Richard's lawyers, but the camera operator who had thrown the errant piece of watermelon had been fired that day. Yeah, who got fired on that day? The camera operator who had thrown an errant piece of watermelon. I assume now that Richard was using drugs during Stir Crazy. But Pryor appeared in this movie that I had already watched previously, Harlem Nights, alongside the likes of Eddie Murphy, Red Fox, Danny Aiello, Richard Lerner, uh, main three people. Yeah, the main people who had already been in the film was Red Fox. Uh, Main people had died. Red Fox, Del Reese, Thomas Ford, and Charles Quentin Murphy Jr. Eddie Murphy's older brother who used to be working security. Uh, every time Eddie was going to do some stand-up comedy. You ever see all the interviews? You've seen plenty of interviews uh, in in the Eddie Murphy documentary when he got interviewed in the 80s. So that movie was already been out in late 1989. It was a comedy. It was a comedy drama crime film that was starring the three generations of black comedians like Richard Pryor himself, Eddie Murphy, the main comedian who can be still a king, and John Elroy Sanford, aka Red Fox. Red Fox is better known by his stage name. What do you go back to the early? Let's go back to the 1990s. Let's go to the 1990s with later years and final works that he was working on. In his later years, starting in the early to mid 90s, Pryor had used a power operated mobility scooter due to the multiple sclerosis that's known as MS. He often said that the MS stood for more shit. He appears on the scooter in his last film appearance in a small role in David Lynch's Lost Highway. It's a late 1990s series. It's a late 1990s series here. It's not. It wasn't like it was a late 1990s movie. I did not know it's a horror film. It was a horror film that he did with last time he did with David Lynch that directed it. Uh, he co-wrote it with Barry Gifford. So uh, I think it's with the likes of Bill Pullman, Patricia Arquette, Baltazar Getty, yeah, Baltazar Getty, Robert Blake, Jack Nance, and Richard Pryor himself. It was the final film roles that it follows a man, you know, who receives some things. Yeah, he did play a small role in the Lost Highway film that was from David Lynch, right here. Who was an American filmmaker, actor, painter, and musician. Uh, he played Arnie, who was a auto repair garage manager. Rhino Records remastered all the shit that Richard Pryor had did that was from Reprise and Warner Brothers albums. Yeah, Rhino Records had remastered all of Pryor's Reprise and WB albums for the inclusion in the box set. It's called And It's Deep too. The complete Warner Brothers recordings that was from 1968 to 1992. Ain't no citation being shown here. In December of 1999, Pryor appeared in the cold open of an episode called The Norm Show. The Norm Show right here, it was hosted by a guy who goes by the name of Norman McDonald. It was produced by Mohawk Productions and Warner Brothers Television. That was aired from the 1990s all the way to the 2000s. It got canceled in the 2000s. See, the episode that was from the Norm Show, which that the main guy who had starred on it was Norman McDonald. Was Norman McDonald. Uh, it was entitled called Norm. It's called Norm versus the Boxer. Richard Pryor, he played a character who goes by the name of Mr. Johnson, who was an elderly man in a wheelchair, who has lost the rights to in-home nursing. The in-home nursing, like when he kept attacking the nurses before attacking Norm, before attacking Norm himself. This was his last television appearance in the 1990s. But in 2002, Pryor and his wife, who he was married to, Jennifer Lee Pryor, who he's married to, and he later manages him. She later manages him for everything else. Richard Pryor, I'll tell you about what happened in 2002. It was nearly like 44, not 44 years, nearly like what? How many years they have? Nearly 24 years. Nearly 24 years ago, that's what Richard Pryor was doing. It was him and Jennifer Lee Pryor, who had to be his wife and manager. They won the legal rights to all of the material that was from Laugh Records, a record label that that Pryor was free from the contract, which had amounted to almost about 40 hours of the reel-to-reel analog tape. The reel-to-reel analog tape, after going through the tapes and getting Richard's blessing, Jennifer Lee Pryor, who was his wife and widow, gave Rhino Records access to the tapes in 2004. These tapes, including the entire Craps After Hours album, formed the basis of the February 1st, 2005 double CD release Evolution Revolution, the early years 1966, 1974. It was coming from the mainstream breakthrough album called That Nigga's Crazy. It got used up a little bit. Guess who Richard Pryor got influenced by? Read the names especially. Read those names to you, the YouTube viewers. Pryor's influence, his influences including the likes of Charlie Chaplin, Sir Charles Spencer Chaplin Jr., Herbert John Gleason, aka Jackie Gleason. Yeah, Herbert John Jackie Gleason. That's his name, Herbert John Jackie Gleason. He's a he's been known for his work on The Honeymooners, Red Skelton, Richard Bernard Red Skelton, the comedy duo of of Abbott and Costello, Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin, Jack Benny, Robert Lester Towns Bob Hope, Woody Allen, Dick Gregory, William Henry Bill Cosby Jr., John Elroy Sanford, who was also known by his stage name Red Fox, and Leonard Schneider, who was also known by his stage name Lenny Bruce. His personal life goes within the balance. Pryor met actress Pamela Greer through a comedian who is no longer with us, Freddie Prinze Sr. They began dating when they were both cast in this movie called Grease Lightning in 1977. Greer helped Pryor learn to read and tried to help him with his drug addiction. Pryor married another woman. Pryor married another woman while dating Greer. Pryor had dated an actress, a white female actress who goes by the name of Margot Kidder. During the filming of Some Kind of Hero, Kidder stated that she fell in love with Pryor in 2 seconds flat after they first met. We got marriages and family. I'll read them all to you. Patricia Price, to whom he was married to in the 1960s. The early 1960s. The early 1960s that he was in that whom he to whom he was that Pryor was married to. Patricia Price. That was from the early 1960s. Shelley Bonus, to whom he was married to in the late 1960s. Deborah McGuire, an aspiring model and actress whom he married on September 22nd, 1977. They dated on and off for 4 years. Prior to their marriage, they separated in January of 1978, and their divorce was finalized in August of that year. Jennifer Lee, an out of work actress who had found work as a painter at the estate of Richard Pryor. Uh, yeah, the assistant. Let me tell you about Jennifer Lee. She was an out of work actress who had found work as a painter at um, Pryor's estate assistant to the decorator who contracted to work on his house in August of 1977. They married in August of 1981 for 14 days after only a week together. Columnist Liz Smith reported Lee had retained celebrity palimony litigator Marvin Mitchelson, who was an American celebrity lawyer who had pioneered the concept of palimony, calling it the marriage with the no rings attached thing, to represent her. Their divorce wasn't even finalized until the fall of 1982. Lee secretly remarried Pryor on June the 29th, 2001, lasting until Pryor's death in 2005. Most of Pryor's close friends and family only then learned of their 2001 nuptials. Flynn Belaine, I don't know who she was. I got to rephrase it. Flynn Belaine, an aspiring actress who he had married in October of 1986. That was in the fall. They met when Pryor was performing in Washington D.C. That's the nation's capital. Yeah, D.C., Washington D.C. In 1984, 2 months after they married, Pryor he had then filed for divorce, but he had withdrew the petition. He withdrew the petition. It's the same day that he withdrew it. A week later that he filed for divorce. Again, their divorce was so finalized in July of 1987, and after they remarried in April the 1st, 1990, but divorced again in July of 1991. We'll take a look at the names that Pryor had fathered 7 children with 6 different women. Renee Pryor, born July 20th, 1957, from his from the girlfriend Richard Pryor, who goes by the name of Susan. When Pryor was a teenager, when he was 16, Richard Pryor Jr., born April the 10th, 1962, from Pryor's first wife, Patricia Price. Elizabeth Ann, born April the 24th, 1967, from another girlfriend of Richard Pryor's, Maxine Anderson. Rain Pryor, this is her, who is now an American actress who had to be her TV credits have including the sitcoms like Head Up the Class in the 80s and Rude Awakening. She was born on July the 16th, 1969. That was from another another one of Pryor's wives, his second wife to that was after the first one. Shelley Bonus. Shelley Bonus. Stephen didn't have a last name to it. Born on November the 14th is what Stephen is. That's Stephen. They got no last name on him. He's born on November the 14th, 1984, from Flynn Belaine, who later became Pryor's fifth wife. Franklin, no last name needed, born on April the 29th, 1987, from Pryor's girlfriend. That's probably okay. It's one of his girlfriends. I was from like, oh, Pryor has one girlfriend. He's the first one. His second girlfriend here. There's his third girl. That's his third girlfriend here. Franklin. There's no last name needed. He was born in April the 29th, 1987, from a third girlfriend who had to be Pryor's used to be girlfriend. who goes by the name of Geraldine Mason. Geraldine Mason. That's three of Pryor's girlfriends. God damn. How many women that he dated? And all the kids that he fathered. Kelsey, no last name needed. Born on October the 25th, 1987. Is from Pryor's fifth wife, Flynn Belaine. Damn, this shit kills the wrath of everything. All the other shit I gotta look at is his personal life. 9 years after Pryor's death in 2014. Not that I forgot. After 9 years after Pryor's death, in 2014, the biographical book "Becoming Richard Pryor" by Scott Soule that stated that Pryor acknowledged his bisexuality, and in 2018, Quincy Jones and Pryor's widow Jennifer Lee stated that Pryor had a sexual relationship with a now deceased actor who's known by lesbian Marlon Brando Jr. Marlon Brando Jr. The guy who's been seen on the Godfather, and that Pryor was open with his friends about his bisexuality, bisexuality, and the fact that he slept with men. I knew it was good. I knew it was so too damn good to be true. He slept with dudes. What an idiot! He talked about this on a celebrity roast back in the 70s. Pryor's daughter, Rain Pryor, later disputed the claim, to which that Lee had stated that Rain was in denial about her father's bisexuality. Lee Lee later told the Hollywood Entertainment Television series TMZ on TV that was mentioned about. It was like it was the 70s. Drugs was still, yeah, that's what's mentioning. It was like it was the 70s. Drugs were still good. If you did enough cocaine, you fuck a radiator, and send it flowers in the morning. In his autobiography, it was called Prior Convictions. This is a book right here. Prior Convictions. Pryor talked about having a 2-week relationship with Metrasha, a trans woman, which he called 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It's called 2 weeks of being gay. In his first special, Live and Smoking, Pryor discusses experiment. That's what Pryor would say. He says something about discussing about experimenting with homosexuality. Pryor later said this in 1977 at a gay rights show at the Hollywood Bowl. He's like, I've sucked the dick. Pryor went on to say during the Hollywood Bowl show that the incident took place in 1952. 1952, when Pryor was 11 or 12 years old at that time, with someone named Wilbur Harp. Pryor also admitted to engaging in anal sex with Harp. The substance abuse that threw him off. That threw everybody off. Some sources, including Pryor himself, say that late in the evening of June 9th, 1980, Pryor poured 151 proof rum over himself and set himself on fire. Other sources, including the Los Angeles police, say The Los Angeles police, including them, they say that what what burned him that night was an explosion that happened while he was freebasing cocaine. While he was still burning, he ran down Parthenia Street from his Los Angeles home until he was subdued by police. He was taken to a hospital where he was treated for second and third degree burns, covering more than half of his body. Pryor can be spent 6 weeks in the recovery at the Grossman Burn Center at the local Sherman Oaks Hospital, in Los Angeles. His daughter Rain, where I go put you back to, stated that the incident happened as a result of a bout of drug-induced psychosis. Pryor's widow, Jennifer Lee, who he was like married to, recalled when he began freebasing cocaine. After 2 weeks, after 2 weeks of watching him getting addicted to this stuff, I moved out. It was clear the drug had moved in and it had become his lover and everything. I did not exist. His health problems in the late 70s. In 1977, that was November of that year, uh, after many years of heavy smoking and drinking, Pryor had a mild heart attack at age 36. He recovered and resumed performing in January the following year in 1986. He was diagnosed with it was like diagnosed at that point with the MS. It means multiple sclerosis. I mentioned this already, which by the mid 1990s resulted him using a mobility scooter that he couldn't even walk most of the time. In 1990, Pryor had a second heart attack while in Australia. He underwent triple heart bypass surgery in 1991. In late 2004, his sister said that he lost his voice as a result of his multiple sclerosis. However, on January the 9th, 2005, Pryor's wife, Jennifer Lee, rebutted this statement in a post on Pryor's official website, citing that Richard is saying, I'm sick of hearing this shit about me not talking. Not true. I have good days, bad days, but, but I still am talking, motherfucker. Okay. Animal activism. Pryor campaigned for better welfare for animals, including through involvement in a successful campaign by people for the ethical treatment of animals, targeting Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's KFC. It was uh, it was headquartered in Kentucky, I think. Burger King. It's a restaurant chain that was already located in Florida, and there's others for sourcing the meat the meat from the suppliers that PETA claimed used inhumane practices. Pryor also fundraised for PETA and was a vegetarian. A vegetarian, I say. The tragic parts here, I have to go read this to y'all, boys. See, on the morning of December 10th, 2005, Pryor had a third and final heart attack at his house in Los Angeles, California, after his wife's failed attempts to resuscitate him. He was taken to a local West Side hospital where he was pronounced dead at 7:58 a.m. Pacific start time. His widow Jennifer was quoted as saying that at the end there was a smile on his face. His body was cremated and his ashes were given to his family. His ashes were scattered in the bay at Hana, Hawaii by his widow in 2019. Forensic pathologist Michael Hunter, there's him right here, Michael D. Hunter, you know what I'm saying, who was a forensic pathologist who was best known for his appearances on the television show Autopsy The Last Hours. He believes Pryor's he believes Pryor's fatal heart attack was caused by coronary artery disease. That was at, at least partially brought about by years of tobacco smoking. It's a legacy that Richard Pryor had left behind, folks. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld called Pryor the Picasso of our profession. And Robert Bob Newhart, rest in peace. George Robert Bob Newhart, R.I.P. They both heralded Pryor as the seminal comedian of the last 50 years. Let's coin this out. The seminal comedian of the last 50 years. Dave Chappelle, he said of Pryor, he's like, you know those like evolution charts of man? He was the dude walking upright. Richard was the highest evolution of comedy. But this legacy can be attributed in part to the unusual degree of intimacy Pryor brought to bear on his comedy, as Bill Cosby reportedly once said. Richard Pryor drew the line between comedy and tragedy as thin as one could possibly paint it. It's awards and honors right here. In 1998, Pryor won the first Mark Twain Prize, the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor from the John Fitzgerald Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, according to the former Kennedy Center president, Lawrence, Lawrence J. Welker. Pryor was selected as the first recipient of the prize because, as a stand up comic, writer, and actor, he struck a chord and a nerve with America, forcing it to look at large social questions of race and the more tragic comic aspects of the human condition, though uncompromising in his wit. Pryor, like Twain, projects a generosity of spirit that unites us. They were both trenchant social critics who spoke the truth, however outrageous. He was listed at number one on Comedy Central's list of the all time greatest stand up comedians. But in 2017, Rolling Stone ranked him first on its list of the 50 best stand up comics of all time in a 2005 British poll to find the comedian's comedian. Pryor was voted 10th greatest comedy act ever by fellow comedians and comedy insiders. Pryor himself posthumously awarded the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2006. This was after he passed away. The animal rights organization PETA gives out an award in Pryor's name to people who have done outstanding work to alleviate the animal suffering. The animal suffering. Pryor was like active in animal rights and was so deeply concerned about the plight of elephants in circuses and zoos alike. In 1999, back then, he was awarded a humanitarian award by the group, by the group, and he worked with them on campaigns against the treatment of birds by KFC. Preston Jackson, who was an artist, had created a life-size bronze statue in dedication to the beloved comedian and named it Richard Pryor. More than just a comedian, it was placed at the corner of State and Washington Streets in downtown Peoria, Illinois, on May the 1st, 2015, close to the neighborhood in which he grew up. He grew up with his mother, you know what I'm saying, Gertrude, who had died in the 60s. The unveiling was held Sunday, May the 3rd, 2015. However, however, in a Netflix special, yeah, that's more rapidly, in a Netflix special that was released in May of 2022, The Hall, honoring the greats of stand-up comedy. Pryor was so inducted into the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. The retrospectives here. I have to keep reading this crap. Shit. In 2002, a TV documentary entitled The Funny Life of Richard Pryor depicted Pryor's life and career, broadcast in the UK as part of the Channel 4 series Kings of Black Comedy. It was produced, directed, and narrated by David Upshaw and featured rare clips from Pryor's 1960s stand-up appearances in films such as Silver Streak, Blue Collar, Richard Pryor live in concert, Stir Crazy. Yeah, Stir Crazy, that film. Contributed Contributors that had already been featured, including the likes of George Carlin. Let me speak the name out. George Dennis Patrick Carlin. Rest in peace. I watched his comedy special. David Chappelle, Whoopi Goldberg, whose real name was Karen Johnson, Ice-T, whose real name is Tracy Merrow, Paul Mooney, whose real name is Paul Gladney, rest in peace. Joan Rivers, rest in peace, whose real name was Joan Alexandra Molinsky, and the likes of the legendary Mary Jean Lily Tomlin. The show tracked down the two cops who had rescued Pryor from his freebasing incident in 1980. Former managers and even school friends from Pryor's home in there was some people that Pryor had known since his years in school, growing up when he was a kid. Yeah, school friends from Pryor's hometown. The people at Pryor's hometown, they're his friends. That's some people that he knew, including former managers, the two cops, and even his childhood friends from school that he knew that he knew from his hometown and all, of Peoria, Illinois. But in the United States, the show went out as part of the Heroes of Black comedy series that was on Comedy Central. It was on Comedy Central, narrated by actor Don Cheadle, Donald Frank Cheadle, Donald Frank Cheadle Jr. A TV documentary, Richard Pryor. I ain't dead yet, motherfucker. 2003 consisted of the archival footage of Pryor's performances and testimonials from fellow comedians, including Dave Chappelle again, Dennis Leary, Chris Rock, born Christopher Julius Rock, and Wanda Sykes, who everybody else know that she's gay and she likes women. On Pryor's influence on comedy. After Pryor had died on December 10th, 2005, but later on December 19th, 2005, BET they aired a Pryor special titled "The Funniest Man, Dead or Alive." It included a commentary from the fellow comedians that he had known, that Pryor had known, and the insight to his upbringing. A retrospective of Pryor's film work, concentrating on the 1970s titled "A Pryor Engagement," opened at a Brooklyn Academy of Music cinemas for a 2-week run in early 2013. Many prolific comedians have claimed Pryor as an influence, including the likes of George Carlin, rest in peace, David Attell, Martin Fitzgerald Lawrence, David Chappelle, David K.W. Chappelle, Christopher Rock, Colin Quinn, Patrice O'Neal, rest in peace, William Hicks, Jerry Seinfeld, Jonathan Stewart, William Burr, Joseph Diaz, or Jose Diaz, Edward Murphy, Louis C.K., whose real name was Louis Alfred Szekely, and Eddie Izzard, Susie Eddie Izzard. On May the 31st, 2013, Showtime debuted the documentary Richard Pryor, Omit the Logic, directed by Emmy Award-winning filmmaker Marina Zanovic. She smiles anytime she wants to smile. Take a look. You can see her bust line. You can see her bust line through the picture. The executive producers were Pryor's widow, Jennifer Lee Pryor, and Roy Ackerman. The interviewees included Dave Chappelle, Karen Johnson, who's known professionally as Whoopi Goldberg, Jesse Jackson, Quincy Jones, rest in peace, George Lopez, Bob Newhart, rest in peace, Richard Pryor Jr., who was still alive, Lily Tomlin, and Robin Williams, rest in peace. On March 12th, 2019, Paramount Network had debuted the documentary I Am Richard Pryor, directed by Jesse James Miller. The film including appearances by Sandra Bernhard. That's the name, Sandra Bernhard, Mary Lily Tomlin, Michael Epps, Howard Mandel, and Pryor's ex-wife, Jennifer Lee Pryor, among others. Jennifer Lee served as an executive producer on the film for the episode Taxes and Death to get him to the Sunset Strip. In 2012, the voice of Richard Pryor is played by Eddie Griffin. in the satirical TV show Black Dynamite. It was a cartoon that uh that Adult Swim used to air in the 2000s. That's all prior to that was the same year as the movie that's based on the cartoon. A planned biopic entitled Richard Pryor. Is It Something I Said was being produced by Christopher Rock and Adam Sandler and Adam Richard Sandler. That's the name, Adam Sandler. Richard is like Adam's middle name. He's a comedian. I remember him from the Cosby Show, and then later he been in the being in those movies. The film would have starred Marlon Wayans. I remembered him from Above the Rim and Wayans Brothers. Don't Be a Menace and the scary movies as the young Pryor. The film would have starred Marlon Wayans as the young Pryor. See, Adam Sandler is a biopic that Chris Rock and Adam Sandler have produced. These are two guys that are like the SNL regulars. The film would have starred Marlon Wayans, who was part of the Wayans clan. The Wayans clan, they starred him as the young Richard Pryor. But other actors had previously attached, including Michael Epps and Edward Murphy. The film would have been directed by a man named Bill Condon, William Bill Condon, who and was still in the development with no release date at all as of early 2013. The biopic is already remained in limbo and went through several producers until it was announced in January of 2014 that it being backed by the Weinstein Company. This Weinstein Company, yeah, it was founded by Robert Weinstein and his perverted and his sexual predator for a brother Harvey Weinstein with this homosexual director Lee Daniels. This guy's gay as fuck. You always seen pictures. You always see pictures of him with Diddy. You see a picture of him when Diddy that was resurfacing through that little video they had. It was the zesty hip hop agenda video there that they put together. Why they put him there as director? Lee Daniels is just a pervert as Harvey Weinstein, dude. Okay, why would the biopic was being backed by the Weinstein Company with Lee Daniels as the director? And this is the part that made people throw up a little bit. It was further announced. It was further announced in August of 2014. Yeah, August of 2014. That was around the summer. That the biopic will have Oprah Winfrey, Miss Oprah Gail Winfrey. Yeah, she. I think she sold. I think she sold Monique Imes out and threw her under the bus, man. Oprah and Monique Imes, Oprah Winfrey and Monique Imes, they did not get along. I mean, she hated Oprah Winfrey to this day too, because Oprah Winfrey have already sold her out. Steve Harvey probably has sold her out too. That's the reason why the biopic. They explained that the biopic that was around the summer of 2014 that would have Miss Oprah Gail Winfrey, who was a producer, and she will probably and will star Michael Epps as the young Pryor. But let me explain it to you. Uh, Pryor was portrayed by the likes of Brandon Ford Green, in a first season fourth episode. It was called Sugar and Spice of Showtime's TV series called I'm Dying Up Here. See, in the epic rap battles, that's what we call it here. We'll take a look at this now. I gotta rephrase again. I've been corrected a couple of times. In the epic rap battles of history, this right here, the ERB. The episode is called George Cullen. It's called George Dennis Patrick Cullen versus Richard uh, Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor. It was the thing with Richard Pryor. The George Cullen, they got this battle between comedians. It was like George Cullen versus Richard Pryor. Zeal, who was an American rapper, had already portrayed as Richard Pryor. Uh, so we got the stuff here, the biography here. 1960s, he was a busybody, wild in the streets. Uncle Tom's Fairy Tales. The 1970s, Carter's Army, The Finks, the PHYNX. Uh, you got to walk it like you talk it, or you'll lose that beat. Live and smoking, dynamite chicken. Lady sings some blues. The Mac, some call it loving. Hit, white stacks, blazing saddles. Uptown Saturday Night, Adios Amigo. The Bingo, Long Traveling, All Stars and Motor Kings. Car Wash, Silver Streak. Grease Lightning, Which Way Is Up. Blue Collar, The Wiz, California Suite. Richard Pryor, live in concert. And the Muppet Movie. In the 1980s here, we're going to move on to it. Holy Moses, In God We Trust, with a dollar sign in God We Trust. It's a dollar sign in trust. Stir Crazy, Busted Loose, Richard Pryor, live on the Sunset Strip. Some Kind of Hero, The Toy. It came out in 1982, same as his comedy special, Some Kind of Hero. That's The Toy. It's with Jackie Gleason. It's with Jackie Gleason. So with Jackie Gleason, rest in peace. Superman 3, 1983, same as Richard Pryor. Here and Now is since 1983, the same way. Brewster's Millions, that's out in 1985 here. JoJo Dancer. Yeah, JoJo Dancer, Your Life is Calling. I think Pimp C have already mentioned Chad Butler. Pimp C. He he mentioned JoJo Dancer in one of the songs. It was a character that Richard Pryor had portrayed. You know what I'm saying? Critical Condition was a 1987 film. A 1988 film there is called Moving. See No Evil, Hear No Evil, along with Harlem Nights. The 1990s, Another You, uh, the three Muscatels, Mad Dog Time, Lost Highway, Me, Myself, and Irene. He played a stand-up comedian on TV. And Superbad, he played as himself. I should just go back to watching Superbad. This movie here. I don't know why Tubi decided to stop uh catching on to that movie. This movie was already been featured Michael Cera and Jonah Hill. His Jonah Hill got fat as hell, but I don't know why he got fat. But a few years later, he decided to slim down and lost some weight, and getting himself featured in some movies like the 21 Jump Street movies. Michael Cera decided to move on with some other film stuff. Superbad is a late 2000s film. They got the TV stuff here from the 60s, the Wild Wild West, ABC Stage 67, Let's Go, The Young Lawyers. In the 1970s, he appeared on The Partridge Family, Mod Squad. He hosted Saturday Night Live, Sesame Street, the Richard Pryor special, which that the network decided to cancel. Pryor's Place, that was later canceled. Billy Joel, Keeping the Faith. He guest appeared on Martin. It was called The Breakup. It was part one. He was on Chicago. He was on Chicago Hope. He 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 guest appeared on Malcolm and Eddie as the character Uncle Bucky. It was from the episode called Do the KC Hustle. He was on the Norm show playing as the Mr. Johnson character. It was called Norm versus the Boxer. Discography, they got all his albums. That was from the 60s and the 70s here. Uh, from the 60s here, there was Richard Pryor album, Craps After Hours. That was in the 70s here. That nigga's crazy. Yeah, TNC was called that nigga's crazy. Is it something I said? Are you serious? Reverend Do Right. Holy smoke. Bicentennial nigga. Insane. LA jail. Who? Me? I'm not him. Richard Pryor live. The Wizard of Comedy. Black Ben, the blacksmith. Wanted live in concert. And outrageous. You got the 1980s here. 1980s here. It's a little mix there. Richard Pryor live on the Sunset Strip. Super nigga. It's like the SN part. I think it was called. It was an album that the Laugh Records was supposed to release. It got released anyway. What's it called? Super nigga. Richard Pryor, Here and Now. Richard Pryor live. Blackjack. They got a posthumous album here that's out there from like ever since 1973 here. Live at the Comedy Store, 1973. Shit. It's all his work right here because it's sad that he passed away in 2005. It's been 21. It's been like 21 years, man. 21 years ever since he passed away. God damn, that guy's a fucking beast. On the microphone, he did kick some serious ass, on stage, and he broke some barriers. We broken some sort of barriers that he already did here. But hey, we have made sure that I made sure I had to preserve his legacy in a good way. But I had to. His legacy, I had to preserve it. As a man, I had to do something to keep his legacy alive. I got to preserve his legacy. I mean, when many people needs to start thanking me. His children. One of his kids should be going there on YouTube. One of his kids can go on ahead and can get on the comment section and start thanking me for preserving uh the legacy that one of the kids, his son Richard Pryor Jr. needs to start thanking me because I had to preserve his father's legacy, just like Manny is going to be thanking me for preserving the legacy of his father, the late Sammy Davis Jr. Manny had already knew me. He knew me. He already saw the video. He started thanking me. His kids need to start. His children need to start thanking me because I already read and mentioned their names by alphabetical disorder. You know what I'm saying? I gotta put this blunt out. I gotta put this blunt out. You know what I'm saying? I've been smoking. I've been smoking and drinking all goddamn day while I'm doing this live show based on it's all based on that man right here, Richard Pryor. I'm so glad I'm honored. I'm so honored to do it. If it weren't for him or any of the other comedians that paved the way, I will not be doing any of these live shows based on the famous comedians. I wanted to do a live show based on famous comedian because I was so on hand to do a live show because I had to do it while I'm smoking a blunt and drinking this. I had to go to the store. I had to go to the store. I had to go to the store this morning and go get this. Rapid Energy fuel. It's called Stinger. Uh, it's called Stinger Mo. It's called Stinger Mo. But I got to do something. I got to do something for the sake of the viewers on YouTube. I do not want to put out his the last I don't want to put out the three middle names that was etching up to his first and last name. I'm just gonna type his first and last name. I'm gonna just type in memoriam of Richard Pryor. Let me get to the let me get to where he was born in. Okay, December the first here, 1940. Okay. Oh, fuck all of them. I fucked up. Fucked up the date. God damn. I gotta make it right this time. Yeah, man. So it's a live show I had to do. I had to go do 2 hours of this. It's all prior to me doing this is long. This little smaller than the live show that I did previous Thursday. Where I had to go do a live show based on me watching JD's live stream for 2 hours. Yeah, you got him beasting, on on a Call of Duty game that he was playing on his gaming console. I had been filming myself watching JD, you know, play the Call of Duty game that he was playing. It was probably supposed to be for his PS5 or his PS4, so I don't even know. One of his consoles he played the game for some reason. Previous Thursday, I went and did. I started streaming live based on me watching JD kick some ass on Call of Duty. Even though when his audio of his microphones, the sound of his audio with his microphone kept going out twice. But I kind of detected it. I didn't know I detected it because I found out there's something wrong with JD's audio. But I found out what's going on with his audio though. He had he had some audio issues and technical issues that he had with his audio, so it just the audio just goes in and out. But I did a good job on it anyway for like 2 hours. For like nearly for almost 2 hours, I can only do this live show. This live show here, I'm glad to do some good, but I let you know if you want to see. You've probably seen this video. If any of the children of Richard Pryor or his widow seen this video, All they got to do is get on to the to my comment section, get onto my comment section and drop one of the comments below and start thanking me because I had to preserve his legacy in the way I had to because hey, I'm not racist at all. I'm just being black. I'm just being black. My grandfather, rest in peace. He's not gonna be here. He's not gonna be here to watch this. He ain't gonna be able to live long enough to watch this live show. Eight members of my family, including my cousin, needs to start watching one of my videos and watch me read the story. Of course, it's important. All you people here, including Richard Pryor's family, his widow Jennifer Lee Pryor, and his son Richard Pryor Jr. need to go into the comment section, my comment section. Right after I'm done with this video, one of them needs to hit the like button on this video, like this here. See the drawing of the like. They can go ahead and zoom in onto it. Either drop a like button, hit the like button, and right after I'm done, they can go ahead and drop a comment below, even though they know what to do. But his family doesn't know who I was. So his family doesn't know who I was. I don't even think that his widow was a fan of my my live shows based on based on famous people. But goddamn, I had to do it because it feels good. It feels so good for me to do a live show based on a famous crazy ass comedian that wanted to be a king of the genre that we all call comedy. But this live show is dedicated into the memoriam of one of the comedians, one of the greatest comedians of all time, Mr. Richard Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor. Born on December the 1st, he was born on December the 1st, 1940, and died on December the 10th, 2005. Rest in peace, Richard Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor.